Chosen one. Tonight, the dam breaks. Tonight, someone who helped orchestrate the most elaborate character assassination campaign against you is about to shatter under the weight of their own deception. They're cornered, desperate, and the only way out is through the truth they've been suffocating for months. What they thought was their masterpiece of manipulation is about to become their confession of corruption. But this story doesn't begin with their impending breakdown. This story begins with you, standing in the eye of a hurricane they created, watching their world implode while you remain untouchable. You've been playing chess while they were playing checkers, and they're just now realizing the board was never theirs to control. Let's talk about the mastermind first, because understanding their psychology is crucial to appreciating the magnitude of what's about to unfold. This isn't someone who stumbled into deception. This is someone who breathes manipulation like oxygen. They've built their entire existence around constructing false realities and watching people dance to their fabricated truths. When they first encountered you, they recognized something that terrified them: authentic power. Not the kind of power that comes from manipulation or control, but the kind that radiates from someone who knows exactly who they are and refuses to compromise that truth for anyone. Your very existence was a threat to their house of cards, because real recognizes real, and they knew they were counterfeit, so they did what master manipulators do. They began studying you, not to understand you, but to find angles of attack. They watched how you moved through the world, who you connected with, what mattered to you. They were building a psychological profile, mapping your vulnerabilities, preparing for a war you didn't even know was coming. The genius of their plan was its complexity. They didn't create one simple lie about you. They wove an intricate web of half-truths, strategic omissions, and outright fabrications that painted you as everything you weren't. If you were generous, they painted you as manipulative. If you were confident, they painted you as arrogant. If you were successful, they painted you as corrupt. But here's what they didn't anticipate. Their obsession with destroying you would become their own destruction. Every moment they spent crafting lies about you was a moment they weren't tending to their own crumbling foundation. They became so consumed with your downfall that they neglected to secure their own position. Their methods were sophisticated beyond simple gossip or casual slander. This was psychological warfare at its most insidious. They understood how to weaponize your own kindness against you. When you tried to be understanding and give people the benefit of the doubt, they painted that generosity as naivety. When you attempted to maintain relationships despite the growing tension, they framed your efforts as desperation or manipulation. The mastermind specialized in moving goalposts, creating impossible standards that changed the moment you met them. Did something simple and normal, they'd blow it out of proportion, suddenly imposing new rules that conveniently made your natural behavior seem like a violation. This psychological abuse was designed to make you constantly question yourself, to keep you off balance and reactive instead of observant and strategic. What made their campaign particularly sinister was how they leveraged community dynamics to amplify their lies. They didn't just spread rumors, they created entire echo chambers where their false narrative could bounce around, gaining credibility through repetition rather than truth. They understood that if enough people repeated the same lie, it would begin to feel like fact to those who weren't paying close attention. The foreshadowing was there from the beginning, though most people missed it. The way they spoke about you with just a little too much certainty, the stories that were just detailed enough to seem credible but not detailed enough to verify, the emotions that seemed just slightly performed rather than genuine. You caught these signals because you're chosen. You see what others miss. Now, the second player in this drama deserves special attention because their motivation was perhaps the most primal and therefore the most dangerous. This person didn't help destroy you for strategic reasons or personal gain. They did it because your existence reminded them of everything they weren't and could never become. Jealousy is a fascinating emotion because it requires the jealous person to constantly acknowledge the superiority of their target. Every day, they had to wake up and confront the fact that you possessed something they desperately wanted but couldn't attain. Your natural charisma, your authentic confidence, your ability to attract genuine respect and admiration, it all served as a daily reminder of their own inadequacy. But instead of using that recognition as motivation for self-improvement, they chose the path of destruction. If they couldn't have what you had, they would make sure you couldn't have it either. They would drag you down to their level, even if it meant corrupting their own soul in the process. This person became the engine of the rumor mill, the enthusiastic spreader of every lie the mastermind created. They added their own flourishes to the stories, their own interpretations of your actions, their own poison to the narrative. They weren't just repeating lies, they were improving them, making them more damaging, more believable, more devastating. The beautiful irony is that their jealousy blinded them to the reality of their situation. They were so focused on bringing you down that they failed to notice they were being used as a pawn in someone else's game. The mastermind needed them for their enthusiasm and their willingness to get their hands dirty, but they never intended to share any real power or benefit with them. Watch for the signs that have been building, their increasing desperation, their escalating attempts to convince others of your alleged wrongdoing, their growing isolation as people begin to see through their obsession. They're about to learn that jealousy is a poison that destroys the vessel that contains it. But there's something even more twisted about this accomplice's role. They were willing to sacrifice their own relationships and reputation to see you fall. They burned bridges with mutual friends who refused to join their campaign against you. They damaged their own credibility by becoming increasingly obsessive and irrational in their attacks. Their jealousy consumed them so completely that they couldn't see how it was destroying their own life in real time. The most telling aspect of their behavior was how they celebrated every perceived setback in your life, while simultaneously claiming to be the victim of your alleged wrongdoing. This contradiction revealed the true nature of their motivation. They weren't seeking justice or protection, they were seeking the perverse satisfaction of watching someone they envied suffer. Perhaps the most infuriating player in this drama was the one who knew better but chose silence. This person understood from the beginning that the narrative being constructed around you was complete fiction. They had access to information that could have cleared your name immediately. They possessed the moral authority to speak truth and shut down the lies. But they chose complicity over courage. Why? Because your destruction served their purposes in some way. They needed you out of the way to advance their own agenda. They enjoyed the drama and chaos that surrounded the false narrative. They were simply too weak to stand against the tide of lies, choosing self-preservation over justice. This person's silence wasn't neutral. It was an active choice to allow injustice to flourish. Every day they remained quiet was another day they chose to let lies masquerade as truth. Every conversation where they failed to defend you was a conversation where they actively participated in your character assassination. But silence has a way of becoming complicity, and complicity has a way of becoming guilt. This person has been carrying the weight of their choice for months, watching you suffer under false accusations while possessing the power to end it. That guilt has been eating them alive from the inside, creating a psychological pressure that's about to explode. Their internal conflict has been building to a crescendo because they're caught between competing loyalties and self-interests. On one hand, they know that speaking up would be the right thing to do. On the other hand, they're terrified of the consequences, both from the conspirators who trusted them to stay quiet, and from you, who might not forgive their initial silence. What they didn't anticipate was how exhausting it would become to maintain their facade of neutrality. Every conversation became a careful dance of deflection. Every interaction with you carried the weight of their hidden knowledge. Every day that passed added another layer to their mounting guilt. They're discovering that complicity requires constant energy to maintain, while truth requires no effort at all. The approaching revelation will expose not just the lies that were told about you, but the truth about who this person really is beneath their carefully maintained facade. They're about to learn that neutrality in the face of injustice is actually a form of participation in that injustice. The first crack in their perfect plan appeared when you stopped reacting the way they expected. They needed you to defend yourself desperately, to become emotional and irrational, to give them ammunition to justify their attacks. Instead, you became an observer. You stepped back and watched their machinery of deception with the calm clarity of someone who knows their own truth. This shift in your behavior sent ripples through their entire operation. The mastermind couldn't understand why their psychological warfare wasn't working. The jealous accomplice couldn't comprehend why you weren't crumbling under the pressure. The silent enabler began to question whether they were on the right side of this conflict. Your transition from victim to observer was the move that changed everything. Suddenly you weren't playing their game by their rules. You weren't giving them the reactions they needed to fuel their narrative. You became unpredictable, and unpredictability is the enemy of manipulation. You became unpredictable, and unpredictability is the enemy of manipulation. The inconsistencies between different versions of events, the coordination between seemingly independent sources. You started connecting dots that revealed the true scope of their conspiracy against you. But more importantly, you began to see the cracks in their alliance. The mastermind increasing frustration with their accomplices' incompetence, the jealous person's growing resentment at being used as a tool, the silent enablers mounting guilt over their complicity. The pressure was building, and you could sense that an explosion was inevitable. This is when you truly embodied your chosen nature, not as a victim of their schemes, but as a force of truth that their lies couldn't withstand. Your mere existence in your authentic power began to destabilize their entire false construction. Something has happened that changed everything. The masterminds bit off more than they could chew. They got greedy and tried to expand their web of deception too far. They made promises to their accomplices that they couldn't keep. Their other schemes finally caught up with them, and they need to distance themselves from past collaborations. The details matter less than the result. Someone is about to crack under pressure. The weight of maintaining multiple lies, managing multiple relationships built on deception, and keeping track of an increasingly complex web of false narratives has become unbearable. What's particularly beautiful about their impending collapse is that it stems from their own greed and overreach. They got drunk on their initial success at manipulating the narrative around you and decided to expand their operations. They tried to control other people's lives with the same tactics. They promised their accomplices rewards they never intended to deliver. The interconnected nature of their corruption means that when one thread starts to unravel, the entire tapestry begins to fall apart. Their lies about you were just one part of a larger pattern of deception that touched multiple aspects of their lives. As pressure mounted from these other schemes, maintaining the facade about you became increasingly difficult and less profitable. There's also the possibility that they encountered someone even more ruthless than themselves, someone who saw through their manipulation and turned their own tactics against them. Nothing exposes a manipulator quite like being out-manipulated by someone who understands their methods better than they do. Rondration. The first sign was the jealous accomplice's growing anger. They've been waiting for their reward for participating in your destruction, but that reward hasn't materialized. In fact, they're beginning to realize they might have been played. The promises made to them are proving to be as false as the narrative they helped create about you. The silent enabler is experiencing something even worse, the dawning realization that they've compromised their integrity for nothing. They thought their silence would protect them, but instead it's made them complicit in something far worse than they originally understood. The guilt is transforming into panic as they realize the full scope of what they've been party to. But the mastermind is facing the worst situation of all. Their carefully constructed empire of lies is crumbling, and their co-conspirators are beginning to turn on them. The same lack of loyalty and integrity they used to manipulate others is now being directed at them by their own allies. The beautiful justice of this moment is that they created the very conditions for their own downfall. By building relationships based on deception and manipulation, they ensured that those relationships would eventually collapse under the weight of their own contradictions. As their world begins to implode, watch how their behavior changes. The mastermind becomes more aggressive, more desperate in their attempts to maintain control of the narrative. They start making mistakes, leaving evidence of their manipulation, contradicting their own previous statements. The jealous accomplice begins to realize they've been used as a pawn in someone else's game. Their enthusiasm for destroying you is replaced by anger at being manipulated themselves. They start questioning the stories they've been told, the promises they've been made, the role they've been asked to play. The silent enabler can no longer bear the weight of their complicity. Every day brings new evidence of the injustice they've allowed to flourish through their silence. The psychological pressure is building to an unbearable level, and they're looking for a way to relieve it without destroying themselves in the process. This is the moment when honor among thieves proves to be a myth. When people build relationships based on shared corruption rather than shared values, those relationships inevitably collapse when the corruption becomes too heavy to bear. The foreshadowing that's been building throughout this entire ordeal is now reaching its crescendo. Every small contradiction, every moment of doubt, every crack in their unified front has been leading to this moment of complete collapse. Someone is about to break their silence, and when they do, the entire house of cards is going to collapse in spectacular fashion. The person preparing to speak has been cornered by circumstances of their own making, and their only escape route is through the truth they've been suppressing. This isn't going to be a gentle revelation or a gradual acknowledgement of wrongdoing. This is going to be a full confession, driven by desperation and self-preservation. They're going to expose not just their own role in your character assassination, but the roles of their co-conspirators as well. The catalyst for their confession might be legal pressure, financial consequences, or simply the realization that their silence is no longer protecting them. Whatever forces them to speak, the floodgates are about to open in spectacular fashion. This won't be a controlled, strategic disclosure. This will be a desperate attempt to save themselves by throwing everyone else under the bus. When someone who's built their life on manipulation finally breaks, they don't just tell the truth, they tell everything. Years of suppressed guilt, resentment toward their co-conspirators, and fear of consequences will come pouring out in an unstoppable torrent. They'll reveal details you never suspected, connections you never imagined, and motivations that are even more petty and vindictive than you thought possible. The confession will reveal the true scope of the conspiracy against you, how many people were involved, how long it had been planned, how sophisticated their methods were, how they coordinated their attacks, how they manufactured evidence, how they manipulated others into believing their lies. But more than that, it's going to expose their motivations, the petty jealousy that drove one person to participate, the cold calculation that motivated another, the cowardice that led to silence in the face of injustice, the complete lack of integrity that made the entire scheme possible. As this truth emerges, pay attention to how quickly the social dynamics around you shift. People who treated you with suspicion will suddenly remember your value. Individuals who believed the lies will scramble to distance themselves from the liars. The entire narrative structure that was built around your alleged guilt will reorganize itself around your proven innocence. The beauty of truth is that once it starts flowing, it's impossible to control or contain. The person who breaks first is going to trigger a cascade of revelations as others rush to minimize their own culpability by exposing their co-conspirators. The jealous accomplice, realizing they've been used and discarded, will turn on the mastermind with vicious intensity. They'll reveal private conversations, share evidence of coordination, expose the cold calculation behind what they previously thought was righteous anger. The silent enabler, desperate to cleanse themselves of guilt, will provide details about what they knew and when they knew it. They'll admit to their cowardice and reveal the information they could have shared to clear your name from the beginning. Even the mastermind, facing complete exposure and isolation, will attempt damage control by shifting blame to their accomplices. They'll claim they were misunderstood, that their motives were misrepresented, that they were manipulated by others into taking actions they now regret. The same weapons they used against you, lies, manipulation, character assassination, are now being turned against each other. The method of their attack has become the method of their destruction. As their confessions pour forth, your vindication won't just be complete, it will be overwhelming. Every lie they told about you will be exposed as projection. Every accusation they made will be revealed as deflection. Every character flaw they attributed to you will be shown to exist in them instead. The false narrative they constructed required them to ignore your actual character, dismiss your real contributions, and fabricate motivations that never existed. But truth has a way of surfacing, especially when built on the testimony of people who've never valued honesty in the first place. Their confession is going to reveal something they never intended, just how extraordinary you actually are. For them to go to such lengths to destroy your reputation, for them to invest so much time and energy in manufacturing lies about you, for them to recruit multiple people in their campaign against you, that speaks to the power and threat your authentic self represents to their false world. This vindication isn't just about clearing your name, it's about revealing the stark contrast between authentic power and manufactured influence. While they were busy playing political games and building false narratives, you were simply being yourself. And that authenticity proved to be more powerful than all their schemes combined. But here's where your chosen nature truly shines. This experience hasn't broken you or even diminished you. Instead, it's forged you into something even more powerful than you were before. You've been tested in the fire of injustice and emerged not just intact, but transformed. You now possess something invaluable, the ability to see through facades instantly. You can spot manipulation from miles away. You understand the difference between authentic relationships and transactional ones. You know who stands with you when the narrative is uncertain and who has the courage to speak truth when lies are more convenient. The skills you develop during this ordeal, observation, pattern recognition, emotional resilience, strategic thinking, these aren't just survival mechanisms. They're superpowers that will serve you for the rest of your life. You've been upgraded through adversity. More importantly, you've learned to trust your own judgment completely. When everyone around you was telling you that you were wrong about yourself, you held on to your truth. When the entire social environment was gaslighting you, you maintained your grip on reality. That level of self-trust is unshakable and invaluable. Hold that thought for a moment. I need your attention for something very important. We're revealing everything we know about personal power, healing yourself, and healing others through weekly Zoom call. No filters, no holding back. We have been quietly adding all the occult secrets we've collected over literal years of spiritual practice. The techniques and wisdom that transformed us from controlled pawns into conscious creators are now available to those ready to walk the same path. This is your invitation to join Obsidian Inner Order and support our platform so we can continue growing our megaphone to reach other chosen ones waiting for activation. By joining the Obsidian Inner Order, you're not just gaining access to forbidden knowledge, you're becoming part of a movement that's rewriting reality itself. It's a 360 win for all of us. Link is in the description. As the dust settles and the truth becomes widely known, you'll find yourself in a completely transformed social landscape. People who participated in your character assassination will be discredited and isolated. Those who remained neutral will be exposed as cowards, and those few who stood with you during the dark times will be revealed as people of genuine integrity. This clearing of the social environment isn't just vindication, it's purification. You're no longer surrounded by people who are willing to believe lies about you without evidence. You're no longer in relationships with individuals who could be manipulated into turning against you. You're no longer wasting energy on people who don't deserve your trust. The new relationships you build from this point forward will be based on truth, authenticity, and mutual respect. People will approach you with genuine admiration for how you handled this situation. They'll be drawn to your proven integrity and unshakable character. Your reputation isn't just restored, it's enhanced. You're now known not just for your talents and achievements, but for your resilience, your integrity, and your ability to maintain your authentic self under extreme pressure. These are rare qualities that command genuine respect. The most satisfying aspect of this is that you didn't have to compromise your integrity to achieve it. You didn't have to become like them to defeat them. You didn't have to lie, manipulate, or scheme. You simply had to remain true to yourself, and that truth became their undoing. Their own methods destroyed them. Their lack of integrity created the instability that brought down their entire conspiracy. Their willingness to betray others created the conditions for their own betrayal. They were defeated not by you, but by the natural consequences of their own choices. This is the difference between temporary tactical victories and sustainable strategic success. They achieved some short-term wins through deception, but their methods contained the seeds of their own destruction. You, by maintaining your integrity, built something that couldn't be torn down because it was based on truth. The chosen ones don't win by becoming like their enemies. They win by being so authentically themselves that their enemies destroy themselves trying to bring them down. Your light didn't just expose their darkness, it blinded them to their own weaknesses until it was too late. Remember how this began, with you standing untouchable in the eye of their hurricane, watching their world implode while remaining unshaken. That image returns now, transformed and elevated. You're still standing, but now everyone can see what you always knew, that their storm had no power over your foundation. The false narrative they built against you is now evidence of their own corruption. Every lie they told about you reflects back on their character. Every manipulation they attempted exposes their true nature. Every scheme they participated in reveals who they really are beneath their carefully constructed facades. You are chosen, and this experience has proven it beyond any doubt. You survived their worst attacks. You maintained your sanity when they tried to make you question your reality. You held on to your integrity when they tried to convince you that you were the problem. You preserved your authentic self when they attempted to rewrite your story. The storm they created to destroy you has passed, leaving you stronger, wiser, and more powerful than ever. Their confession is coming, their truth is emerging, and your vindication is complete. You didn't just survive their attack, you transformed it into your triumph. This is what it means to be chosen, not that you're exempt from attacks, but that you're capable of turning those attacks into your advantage. Not that you won't face lies, but that you'll emerge from them with your truth shining brighter than ever. Not that you won't encounter enemies, but that you'll defeat them simply by being who you are. The false narrative they built against you is dead. Your authentic story lives on, stronger and more compelling than ever. You are vindicated, you are victorious, and you are free.